Hey there, everyone. Let's continue our conversation of Hamlet. In this video, I want us to specifically look at scenes 6 and 7 of Act 4. Again, I am using the Folger edition version of the book, and so let's go ahead and get started by reading the summary at the top of page 220. It says, Horatio is given a letter from Hamlet telling of the prince's boarding of a pirate ship and his subsequent return to Denmark. All right, so if you remember, Claudius wanted to get Hamlet out of there, wanted to send him off to England. And, there, actually, he was plotting for them, upon his arrival, the English to murder Hamlet, to kill him, to take care of him entirely, all right? But now, we see that Hamlet has figured out some way to return to Denmark, all right? So let's see how this is going to play out, and let's see what comes of all this, all right? Really, the only thing I'm going to read is the letter itself on page 221. And there's a bit here, but it gives us insight as to how Hamlet has arranged this, or the story that Hamlet is giving and how he arranged this to go down. All right. This begins on line 13 on page 221. Horatio, it says he reads the letter. It says, Horatio, when thou shalt have overlooked this, give these fellows some means to the king. Okay, so basically the people who delivered the message to him, once you've looked over the message, give them some means to the king. Let them, have access to the king, or, because they, it says, have letters for him. All right, so there's a letter for Horatio, and there's a separate letter we'll see in the next act, or the next scene, that will go to the king. It says, ere we were 2 days old at sea, a pirate, a very warlike appointment, gave us chase. Finding ourselves too slow of sail, we put on a compelled valor, and in the grapple I boarded them. All right, so the pirate ship caught up with them. All right, and the pirates were, well equipped, okay, to do battle. So Hamlet boarded their ship rather than them boarding the ship that Hamlet was on. It says, so I alone became their prisoners. That's what Hamlet is saying. Almost like he volunteered as tribute for the other people on the boat. All right. They have dealt with me like thieves of mercy, but they knew what they did. I am to do a good turn for them. Let the king have the letters I have sent, and repair thou to me with as much speed as thou wouldst fly death. I have words to speak in thine ear, will make thee dumb, yet they are much too light for the bore of the matter. All right, I have things I want to tell you. All right, that are you're going to be stricken dumb. You're speechless as a result of it. Okay, but they're too much for me to write here. It says, these good fellows will bring thee where I am. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern hold their course for England. Of them I have much to tell thee. Farewell, he that thou knowest thine, Hamlet. All right? So, Hamlet is planning to return. And he's got a lot of things that he wants to tell Horatio, things that he's discovered while being out at sea for these 2 days. So, this brings us to scene 7, the last scene of Act 4. All right? I'm going to read the summary at the top of page 222. It says, Claudius gets a letter from Hamlet announcing the prince's return. Claudius enlists Laertes, willing to help, in devising another plot against Hamlet's life. Laertes agrees to kill Hamlet with a poisoned rapier in a fencing match. If he fails, Claudius will give Hamlet a poisoned cup of wine. Gertrude interrupts their plotting to announce that Ophelia has drowned. One thing leads to another, piling on top of each other. All right. So, scene 7 begins on page 223, and essentially the king is asking Laertes, sort of getting Laertes on his side. He's ingratiating himself to Laertes to say, we need to be co-conspirators because we both have issue with Hamlet. All right. at the top of page 225, line 31, Laertes says, he insists, but my revenge will come. And the way he delivers this often, on stage, is a very cold and calculated, he means business, all right? The messenger comes in, brings this letter, all right? And it says, it reads on line 49, it says, "High and mighty, you shall know I am set naked on your kingdom. Tomorrow I shall beg leave to see your kingly eyes, when I shall, first asking your pardon, thereunto recount the occasion of my sudden and more strange return." Hamlet. All right. So he says, know that I am set naked on your kingdom. All right. I am returning alone. I am returning defenseless, yet I am returning. And when I do return, we need to talk. We need to meet with one another. All right. And of course, this is not anything that the king was prepared for. Okay, he thought it was done. He was setting Hamlet off to England, and they were going to make quick work of him whenever he arrived there. All right, so that the king could, again, he's plotting the murder of Prince Hamlet to get away with it the way he believed he had with committing the murder of King Hamlet. Okay, right. So the king says, this is line 71 on page 227. It says, "I will work him to an exploit, now ripe in my device, under the which he shall not choose but fall. And for his death no wind of blame shall breathe, but even his mother shall uncharge the practice and call it accident." Okay? We'll do things this certain way so that even his mother won't suspect a thing. Laertes replies, "My lord, I will be ruled, the rather if you could devise it so that I might be the organ." All right? So when he says that, he says, I am with you. I will follow your plan, but I want to make sure that I am the organ. He says, I am the one who actually does the work to put an end to Hamlet. I want the pleasure of killing Hamlet myself. It's essentially what Laertes says there. All right. The king goes on to sort of butter up Laertes, to get Laertes to, sort of eat out of his hand there, saying there was a Norman, a certain Frenchman, who was so extraordinarily complimentary of you and your fencing abilities. All right? And so Claudius wants to find this ability, or use this ability, I should say, and he's flattering Laertes to get Laertes on board. Laertes is already on board, but to this particular plan. All right. On line 108, the king says, "He made confession of you and gave you such a mastery report for art and exercise in your defense, and for your rapier most especial, that he cried out, 'Twould be a sight indeed if one could match you. The scrimers of their nation, he swore, had neither motion, guard, nor eye if you oppose them. Sir, this report of his did Hamlet so envenom with his envy, that he could do nothing but wish and beg your sudden coming o'er to play with you. Now, out of this, okay, he says, out of this we're going to make our plan." So essentially what all that says is, this person from France was so impressed with you and lavished so much praise on you and your ability to, in fencing, that it made Hamlet so extraordinarily jealous. All right, that this jealousy, he was overcome with envy. All right, so let's use this. Let's use this envy, because essentially Hamlet wanted to challenge you, to show that he was every bit as good as you were. All right, so come on, let's build on this and let's use this to our advantage. All right, so on page 231, the king wanting to make absolutely certain that Laertes is 100% on board, he asks on line 141, says, Hamlet comes back, all right? What would you undertake to show yourself indeed your father's son more than in words? More than just claim that you are a son, what would you actually do to prove it? Laertes' response is to cut his throat in the church. I would cut Hamlet's throat in the church because he killed my father and he's driving my sister insane. He deserves to die, and I want to be the one to do it, and I'm shameless in how I will make sure it gets taken care of. All right. So the king on line 146 says, revenge should have no bounds. But good Laertes, will you do this? Keep close within your chamber. Hamlet, return, shall know you are come home. We'll put on those shall praise your excellence and set a double varnish on the frame the Frenchman gave you, bring you in fine together and wager on your head. So basically what we'll do is we'll pull up all those feelings that he has of inadequacy because of what the Frenchman said. We will stoke that envy in him again, get him worked up to where he will want to fight you, and then we'll put a wager on who will win, who will be better, okay? And then it continues on saying, he, being remiss, most generous, and free from all contriving, will not peruse the foils, so that with ease, or with a little shuffling, you may choose a sword unbaited, and in passive practice requite him for your father. All right? So, he won't, he'll be too worked up and ready to go that he won't actually give the swords themselves a good looking over, and essentially he'll make the choice of the sword. You will know which one isn't just a practice sword, which one is an actual real deal one, and this will all appear as though it were some sort of accident. All right? Laertes says essentially, all right, I got you, but I'll go one further. Listen to this. He says, I'll do it. And for that purpose, I'll anoint my sword. I bought an unction of a mountebank, so mortal that, but dip a knife in it, where it draws blood, no cataplasm, so rare, collected from all simples that have virtue under the moon, can save the thing from death that is but scratched withal. All right? So, an unction, that's an oil. I bought an oil off somebody that is poison, and it is so deadly poison that even if it just barely scrapes, it will drop someone dead. I'm going to cover the sword I use with that oil, with that poison. So it won't need, it won't just be, yes, I am better than he is at fencing. I'll glance him and take care of him with my own sword. I'm going to double down and make sure that this happens by poisoning the very sword I use. Okay? It says, I'll touch my point with this contagion that if I gall him slightly, it may be death. The king, happy with this plan, but still wants to make sure that this happens, that this actually does go down. He says on line 174, therefore, this project should have a back or second that might hold if this did blast in proof. We need a backup plan in case this one doesn't work. All right? So, line 179 says, when in your motion you are hot and dry, as make your bouts more violent to that end, and that he calls for a drink, I'll have prepared him a chalice for the nonce, whereupon but sipping, if by chance escape your venom stuck, our purpose may hold there. But stay, what noise? Because the queen comes in. Okay, so what he says is this. When you fight him with more vigor and more vitality, and just make it a very rigorous, maybe not rigorous, vigorous would be the better word, vigorous display, so that he gets worn out, so that he gets thirsty. All right? When he does, I will provide him with a drink. That drink, too, will be poison, so that if your sword doesn't get him, with it being poison, the drink will get him. All right? One way or another, he's going down. We're poisoning him. Seems to be the way that Claudius likes to have things go down, right? But we have the queen enter, and the queen says, "One woe doth tread upon another's heel. So fast they follow. Your sisters drown, Laertes." So Laertes, an orphan, but still a sibling, is now not even a sibling. His family's gone. All right? He's devastated. And the queen mentions how it went down on page 235, line 199. She says, she was in a tree, and the bough, the limb which she was in, broke, and she tumbled down into the water. All right? 199, she says, "When down her weedy trophies and herself fell in the weeping brook, her clothes spread wide, and mermaid-like a while they bore her up, which time she chanted snatches of old lauds." She's still singing. If you remember the last time we saw her, she was just singing songs that made little sense. She still was doing it. It says, singing snatches of old lauds as one incapable of her own distress, or like a creature native and endued unto that element, as if she were just unaware that it was her doom. But long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. And Laertes now, obviously distraught, more distraught than he was, more enraged than he was, more determined to revenge and take Hamlet out. He leaves. The king, though, listen to this. The king on 218, line 218, page 235. "Let's follow, Gertrude. How much I had to do to calm his rage. Now fear I this will give it start again, therefore let's follow. I had done so much to try to calm him down, lie, that I'm afraid this is going to make him more upset." Okay? Of course, they were co-conspiring. They were trying to outdo each other with their rage and try to outdo each other with the ways that they are intending to kill Hamlet. All right? He was in no way. He's lying to his wife. This man just lives lies. That's all he ever does. All right? That's it for Act 4. Stay tuned for Act 5. In the meantime, take a look at Act 5. Read it, annotate it, have your own thoughts about it, and come back here and meet me for mine. Until then, and as always, I'm going to say to you, happy reading.